Hi everyone, Brian here, and I hope you can hear me over the sound of the fan that is blowing, because although the mega heat wave of the last few weeks is abated somewhat, it's still quite balmy today, still quite warm, so a fan is kind of puffing gusts of warm air onto me just to try and keep me cool while I make this video. And as I record this, it is now 10 minutes past 3 in the afternoon. And my intention today actually was to sit down at probably, I don't know, about 7 o'clock this morning. I had all these ideas in my head. I was sitting down and doing some early morning videos before I got ready for my first meeting of the day. But the best laid plans and all that, because in actual fact I didn't get to my meeting until considerably later than I intended, because there was a little bit of an emergency in that my next door neighbour had a hospital appointment. She's a lovely person, elderly lady who had a hospital appointment this morning and whose taxi firm let her down, and so she knocked on my door and said, do you have a number for another taxi? Can you know, I'm going to be late for my appointment. And I said, we don't need to get a taxi, I will take you there. So I whisked her to the hospital, and it was great. It was a brilliant opportunity for me to chat with her, because you know, she's our next door neighbour, but we don't see all that much of each other, although we do see each other when she has parcels for us, because she takes in the post for us. We have the smallest letterbox in the world, so anything that's bigger than a normal sized letter, you know, or package, usually has to be taken to the post office or left with her, and she's always very willing to take them in. In fact, a few years ago I said to her, I think we need to get a bigger letterbox, and she said, oh, don't do that, because you know, I wouldn't get a chance to speak to you if you did that, because she always enjoys taking it in. So this was a brilliant way of repaying her, and it's also given me this little anecdote to tell you, which I wouldn't have been able to do had I started this video at 7 AM in the morning. So it's all good, and it's been a brilliant, well, an example of love thy neighbour. Brilliant opportunity to do exactly that. Brilliant opportunity to connect with somebody in an unexpected way. So that got my day off to an interesting and rather excellent start. And then I went to my meeting, and now I'm back home, and I've decided that what I'm going to do is, I'm going to try to do anyway, a series of fairly short videos, because I'm very conscious that my last few videos for the Tarot to the 9 series, which is still ongoing, if you have not yet checked it out and you're interested in tarot and number symbolism and all that kind of stuff, I'll put the link below. Please do join us. There's a Facebook group too. It's very lively. Brilliant people in that group, all of whom are asking fantastic questions and answering each other's questions and sharing so much information, and it's just been so much fun to do. So all the details are below. But what I want to do, or try to do today, is a series of shorter videos, because all the Tarot to the 9 videos have been quite long, about half an hour, and my videos tend to be quite long because I ramble like this, and then I realise that already almost 4 minutes has passed and I haven't even got to the meat of this video. So yes, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to respond, I think, to a few tag videos that I haven't had time to respond to until now. I'm going to try and make quite quick responses, famous last words, and in this video I'm actually going to create a new tag, because it's been a while since I did a tag, and I've been missing creating tags and getting the responses to tags. Although you're all welcome, by the way, those of you who are following Tarot to the 9s, if you want to do a video response to any of the videos in that or the series as a whole, please do. That's not a problem. Not that it would be a problem, but it would be great, in fact. That's what I'm trying to say. But this video is, or this tag that I want to do, is very simple, very straightforward, not terribly original. I'm sure this conversation has been started before, but I'm going to start it in a slightly different way. And that is to ask the question, which is the name of the tag, why do you tarot? Because I know that many of you out there have lots of different reasons for why you have got involved in tarot, why you use tarot now, how you use it, whether it's for yourself or for others, and all the stuff that's built around doing tarot readings. So there are some people, for example, who only do tarot readings for others, or only do readings for themselves, and maybe they only use one deck. Then you get other people who collect loads and loads of different decks and actually do more of that than tarot reading, because they're more interested in maybe in the history of tarot, or the kind of collecting aspect of tarot, and you know, having access to lots of different decks. Maybe they're interested in the artwork of tarot decks, etc. So there's loads of different reasons why people tarot, why they get involved in tarot, why they stay involved in tarot. And so this tag is about exploring exactly that from your perspective. And I want to hear from you about why do you tarot, and I want to hear everything about it. So I've actually put together 5 questions, and the idea is that you answer these questions, but if you want to then add anything to the questions or just general observations, please do that as well. And as usual, you can either do it just by answering the questions directly and or pulling cards to illuminate the questions, which you can either do in the video itself or almost live if you like, or you can do it beforehand. And when you pull the cards, you could either pull the cards randomly, as you do, you know, just shuffle the deck and then pull a card and see what it tells you, or you can go through the deck and pick cards that you think represent your answers to the question. So I'm going to start, since that only seems fair, since I've posed these questions, I should answer them. And what I've done is I actually am going to show you some cards that I've picked, deliberately picked, to illustrate my answers. Now the deck that I'm using is one that I recently acquired and love very much, and that is the Tarot of Pagan Cats. And actually this is the Borderless edition. Now a number of people are aware that the Borderless edition is available now, but you might not be aware of how to find it or what it looks like. Well, actually it looks just the same as the original deck from the front, but on the bottom you will see it says Borderless edition. So it's not very obvious if you're looking at this online and you just see the cover. I got it directly from the Los Caribbean website. I'll put a link below. I think some copies are available on Amazon and eBay and so on, but you might want to specify that you want the Borderless edition. I'll hold this up so you can see what the, oh maybe you can't, I'm not sure, that's not too blurred. I'll try and get the information about the ISBN numbers and put them below. I'm presuming that the ISBN number for the Borderless edition is different to the non-Borderless. The only slight problem is it may be that they have replaced this, the bordered edition with this edition, I don't know. So anyway, I'm sure you can figure it all out. I don't need to figure that out for you, you know what you're doing. So, on with the tag. Why do you tarot? So here are the 5 questions. I'll run through them quickly, then I'll answer them, and quick fire answers, and I'll show you the cards I've selected. So, number 1, how did tarot come into your life? Number 2, how did you use it then for yourself and for other people, if you read for other people? Number 3, how has your understanding of tarot changed since then, if in fact it has? And sub part of the question, still the same question, but second part of it, if it has changed, why? Then the 4th question, how do you use it now for yourself and for others, if you in fact read for others? And number 5, to sum it all up, why do you tarot? So why do you keep using it now, if you do in fact use it? So I'll put those questions below. So here are my answers. So how did tarot come into my life? Okay, well, 2 ways. The first time I actually encountered a tarot deck and a tarot reading was when I went to university, and the girl who lived in the room above mine in my hall of residence had a tarot deck, and she had a bag of runes, and I used to go around to visit her, and we would do tarot readings for each other and pick runes and so on, and it was great fun. And that was my first experience of actually using a deck of cards. And the thing that struck me about it was just, although I didn't really know how it worked or why it worked, it became very obvious to me that there was something happening. So if I took a question to the tarot deck and then I did a reading, I got back an answer that was almost always extremely illuminating, extremely enlightening. It stimulated all kinds of new thinking in me, and that made me think there is something here with this. So that was my direct experience. Then I subsequently went and bought my first tarot deck, which was Tarot of the Old Path, and I've done a video on Tarot of the Old Path and my first deck, so I'll link that below. One other thing to say though, about the original experience of tarot, and I've explained this in detail in another video, is that a tarot card actually appeared to me in a dream several years before I'd ever encountered a tarot deck, and that was the Empress card. Here it is in the wonderful Tarot of Pagan Cats, and I'll link my Empress dream below. Many of you have heard it already, but it was a dream that came to me all kind of tied up with the fact that my mum was very ill at the time and subsequently died, and the Empress card, well, my mum in the dream appeared to me in the form of which I later realised was the Tarot Empress. So she was in a big carriage with a star crown, and she was on a stage, and she was being moved from one stage to the other, or was moving from one stage to the other. And in the dream, without any words being spoken and without any direct interpretation, the message that was conveyed to me by the dream was that she was leaving and was having to say goodbye, but that at some fundamental level she was okay and I was okay, and there was something underneath it all that was more solid and secure than appearances would have had me believe. But I go into that in more detail and the interpretation of that in the Empress video, so I'll link that below for you. So that's my representation of tarot and you know, how it came into my life. So the next one is, how did I use it then for myself and for others? Well, I suppose two cards represent this, and I'll show the cards first and then tell you what I think. And actually, funnily enough, they're the two that are immediately preceding the Empress card, and that is the Magician and the High Priestess. And what this means to me is, how I used it for myself and others back then was based on the idea that there was some kind of hidden mystery that was veiled to me, and that through some kind of magical ritual process, i.e. the tarot reading, I could unlock that mystery. Now, I'm not saying that I necessarily believed that literally, but that was the kind of conceptualization I had of tarot at the time, because that's probably generally how tarot is presented, particularly if you believe in predictive reading and, if you like, the power of tarot, and that there is some kind of mysterious, metaphysical, magical power even behind it. And as a model for understanding how tarot worked, that kind of worked for me. And most of my certainly when I read for myself, that was the feeling I had, that I was unveiling some mystery. When I read for others, I didn't ever present myself as being in any way kind of psychic or having, you know, mystical powers, and that's just not how I conceived of what I was doing with tarot. But certainly my experience of the people I read for was that very often they would say to me after the reading, you know, that was amazing. You know, you uncovered things that I didn't expect you would be able to uncover, or maybe wasn't even aware of. And sometimes I would do a reading where, for example, I would do the in Tarot of the Old Path, I think this was, there was a specific spread which was called the Wheel of the Year spread, and you pulled 2 cards for each month of the year ahead, and they were meant to illuminate key themes and events that were in that month. And so we would do this, and what some of the people I read for would do is they'd make a note of the cards that I picked and a note of the interpretations, and several of them would come to me several months later and say, with the bits of paper, and say, look at this is what you said, or what the card said more accurately, in terms of the months ahead, and here's some of the stuff that happened, and they match up in an uncanny way. So that was kind of interesting to me and to them, and kind of confirmed my feeling that tarot was a very useful tool for helping us understand and illuminate key themes in our lives. But there was this sense that there was some kind of mystery that needed to be unveiled, and that tarot was the key that unlocked it, and that in a sense you couldn't do that without that mystical and mysterious kind of power that tarot had. So that was then. So how has your understanding of tarot changed since then? And if it has changed, why? Well, what I have got here representing this is 2 cards. This is the Hierophant in the Pagan Cats, and Temperance. And the reason I've chosen these cards is that here's the change. I mentioned there was this idea that there was some kind of veiled mystery, and that you needed some kind of key to get through it. And for me, the Hierophant can mean that. The Hierophant can mean the need for some kind of intermediary to help you connect directly with divinity, your soul, your spirit, however you want to conceive of it. And yeah, and that in a way you needed an interpreter. Now I tend to think that actually it's the interaction between you and the cards, or the reader, the readee, the querent, and your interpretation of the cards, or their interpretation of the cards, if you, as I do now, do an interactive kind of tarot reading with them, that's where the power is. And you don't need an intermediary. What you do need is an open mind and an ability to engage with the symbolism of tarot, or the first impressions that tarot gives you, etc., etc., and to do that in an open-minded way, so that you can reflect on what that means for your life. So for me, the distance between me and the mystery, or the person I'm reading for and the mystery that tarot can help us uncover, has significantly closed. I don't get the sense that there's now some kind of veil that we need to penetrate. For me, it's now much more about a holistic picture, that we are part of that mystery, and tarot can help us find our place in the mystery. So that is how my understanding of tarot has changed, and if it has changed, why? So why has that changed? Well, probably because I've done more learning and studying and reading about various mystical traditions. I became very interested a few years ago in non-dualism, in Taoism, in Buddhism, and that kind of Gnostic, mystical side of things, where the idea of there being some kind of religious or spiritual school which held the information and that wasn't accessible by ordinary mortals like me, that kind of dissipated to the point where I thought, actually no, to me it's much more like the Zen picture of, you know, we are part of the whole is part of us, and the real mystery is that we are the mystery. And so because that perceived distance has closed, my understanding of tarot and what it means has changed. So that's why. How do you use it now for yourself and for others? Well, what's representing that is the Two of Cups, and I mentioned to you that I now do a very interactive reading. If I'm sitting with somebody and doing a reading, it's very interactive. So I will not be saying this card means this, or even say maybe it means this. I will be saying to people, okay, you've got this card in this position based on this question that you've asked. What do you see in the cards? Maybe describe the card. What are your first impressions of the card, etc. So I do it very interactively, and work with them to help them interpret their own reading. That's how I tend to do it. And even if I'm doing, let's say, an email reading where I'm not interacting with the person I'm reading for, even then I will tend to give a kind of an impressionistic picture of, here's the card in the context of this position in the spread and the question that was asked, and here are some of the things that can spill out of that interaction. Okay. By the way, the reason I'm using pagan cats is because I'm wearing my new cat t-shirt, which is a bit big for me actually. I had to get this because it's not that it looks like Maya, but it's a black cat, and the black cat has got a little crystal ball, and in the crystal ball is a witch on a broomstick. So what is not to love about that? That's why I had to get it, and I'm very pleased that I did. So, next question. I'm going to try and get to, a minute to go to 20 minutes. If I can get this under 25 minutes, we'll be doing quite well. Short videos. How do you use it now for yourself and others? Done that. Haven't we? Yes, done that. So why do you tarot? Okay, so one set of cards and one extra card to illustrate this. Why do I tarot? I'll do this one first. Because I want my life to be better. I want the lives of the people I'm reading for to be better, happier, warmer, more illuminated, more nourishing. Not necessarily all touchy-feely and wonderful, but just improved through an enlightened perspective. So for me, the sun represents that very much. And also, the other thing I want, and this is just a brilliant illustration in this deck, which is another reason that I chose it. I want there to be less distance between reality and my view of what reality should be, because it's really clear to me that the difficulty we have often as humans is that our expectations of reality and reality don't necessarily chime, and our discomfort can come from that. Now I'm not saying, before anyone asks, that we should all just, you know, roll over and be happy with all the terrible things that are happening in the world. You know, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that, you know, a lot of our energy is expended in wishing that things were different than they are, rather than just dealing with the situation as it presents itself. So if something difficult happens to us, in a way the choice is either we engage with that difficulty and we go with the flow and we roll with it, and it might be very painful and difficult and upsetting and a struggle to do that because of the circumstances. But if on top of that, if overlaid on that, our minds are telling us this is terrible, it shouldn't be like this isn't fair, it's all of that, then the tension just ramps up. So what I want to be in a position to do is for there to be a match between my view of reality and what reality actually is. And the wonderful thing in this deck is that the major arcana begins with the Fool, this lovely little cat chasing a butterfly and dreaming about being on its cushion with a little saucer of milk. It doesn't look like it's unhappy, but it might fall off the ledge, and you know it's hunting the butterfly, and you know it's there is a mismatch between what it's doing and what it, if you like, wishes it was doing or imagines it was doing. And when it goes through the journey of the major arcana, it gets to the point where reality and perception about reality matches, and it's a bit like the move from, you might even say, foolishness to enlightenment. And not that foolishness in the tarot context is necessarily a bad thing, but there's something there about a journey, a more enlightened being as a result of the journey that the Fool is about to take. So for me, that is one of the reasons why I tarot. And with that, and we are going to get under 25 minutes, maybe even under 24, I'm going to close. And I'm going to say to you, please respond to this tag. There is a prize, by the way. Well, two prizes. One is, I've got here, wrapped up in my little Scotty dog paper, a copy of the Universal Weight Tarot. This is yours if you win this tag, and we'll do it by the usual thing of drawing names of people who do the tag. If you've already got the Universal Weight, and I know that many of you will, I have got other decks around that I'm willing to part with, so if you win, we can discuss. Either you get the Universal Weight, or you can have another deck, and we'll discuss that at the time. And the other thing that's up for grabs, if you want it and you win, is an email reading from me on any topic you like, or just generally. So yeah, that's it. That is the tag, why do you tarot? So that was why I tarot, and now I want to know, why do you tarot? See you soon. Bye.